I want to know all of me. I want to know every part. I want to see everything that's happened that I've missed these past few years. I want to see every part of me. Because, my darling, you are divine perfection. And every part of me is worthy of being known.
Known, that's always what we have tried to be to us for the things.
I know that there's a lot of secrets inside of my brain that want to be known. I know it.
My last fully lucid memory is from May 2017. For 3 years, I was only able to create implicit memory fragments. Even as I recover memories now, they're all in bits and pieces. Basically, my internal sense of self was experienced through independent regions of neural wiring rather than through a unified sense of self who understood each period of my life in a collective way that had led up to the present moment where I was a sense of self. I didn't have a sense of self in the present moment, and all of these different portions of life experience that had created different regions of neural wiring were experienced independently of one another. And then that limited access to a sense of self was then completely disconnected from external reality. It was a complete mind-body disconnect. And so from these independent regions of my neural wiring, I couldn't fully access physical reality. I was not a person oriented in time and space. My sense of external physicality was very, very limited, and I could only get to individual sensations at a time, and even those individual sensations were not processed through a sense of self. So from the spring of 2017 through the spring of 2020, my brain-body system only processed experiential elements into implicit memory fragments. In the past year, my brain-body system gradually regained an ability to process memories. But here's the fascinating part that I'm still piecing together. Even as my brain-body system began regaining an ability to process explicit memories, they were not processed through a sense of self. I had these moments of my life, but because the me in the present day wasn't oriented with all of the me's that have been, the experiences here weren't processed through a sense of self. They were these independent experiences that didn't have connection with any other aspects of me. As I gradually regained an ability to create explicit conscious memories in May and June 2020, one of my first memories was going hiking every day because I needed to stimulate my left brain hemisphere. And so I would go up to these hiking trails and I would hike for 5 to 10 hours every single day while writing a book on my phone. And walking and writing simultaneously helped stimulate my left brain hemisphere. I ended up writing an entire book, like a solid typed 200-page document book. And it was really, really intense because there was one day where I didn't go hiking and I was like, you know what? I want to give myself a break, a rest. This has been so intense. It's been weeks of just this nonstop left brain hemisphere stimulation. I took like one day off, and the next day I couldn't read and I was having a hard time physically walking. And I pushed myself through that. And I went hiking, and every 2 steps I would just break down sobbing because of the brain hemispheric imbalance. And I had to push through it. And eventually I regained a position where I could read and walk again. And I hiked for 10 hours that day because I was like, I'm not leaving here until I know that my left brain is engaging. And so it's very much something happening in my brain this whole time. It wasn't until September 2nd, 2020 that I started to actually realize that I was Kristin Karina Windsor. I sold my truck named Tilden, who I'd had since 2012, so I had a lot of memories in this truck. Before selling the truck, I drove him up and down the street a couple times. In those moments, I started to experience waves of memory recall, basically. And I was realizing that I had a whole life before this intensive trauma recovery the past few years. I started to actually realize that I was an adult woman and I had this entire life before I started losing the ability to create conscious memories. It's like my brain was blocking me from understanding that I was Kristin Karina Windsor because it wasn't safe to be that person. I didn't have access to all the types of information within neural data that would allow me to know who I am. Christmas Day 2020 was the very first time that I actually really felt like I was Kristin Karina Windsor. And even now, things continue to heal, and I feel like I get a little piece of me back every day. Each day, encouraging new associations with who I am to continue healing my unconscious body-mind and restore my consciousness to its full glory. During the summer and autumn of 2020, I began writing a book titled Liberated Consciousness, and it explained how to understand and heal unconscious minds in brand new ways using diagrams and practices that I had cultivated these past few years while healing myself and working on my case studies. During those months, I wrote over 1,000 pages. And in that process, I actually didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, I see that all of the writing was helping my brain heal. During that time, I could not look back at any of what I had experienced because I would relive it. I didn't yet have an ability to observe it from a grounded position of brand new moments. When memories came up, I could only relive them. And so typing all that time helped my brain heal. In October 2020, I started writing Liberated Consciousness over from scratch, started completely at the beginning. I wrote a 62,000 word manuscript in just a month. The last time my brain experienced an imbalance between the hemispheres was on November 9th, 2020. I experienced left brain fatigue from writing so much, and I rested that day. And ever since then, my brain hemispheres have experienced natural balance, which is the greatest gift in the world. As I was submitting my book to publishers in December 2020, I began to realize something interesting. I didn't seem to have a sense of self regarding the me who was submitting the book. I thought everything was all healed up and I was good to just continue on with the rest of my life like trauma had never happened. It came to the author bio and I was like, what is this? I'm publishing a book. Why do I have to have a me who is publishing the book? That's when I realized I needed to go back and really look at everything that had led me to the process of writing that book. And that's what led me to this adventure of creating this documentary series, an opportunity for me to see everything that had happened to lead me to where I am today. Even though my conscious mind has no memory of these past few years, I've been learning about how my body remembers every single moment. Gradually exploring videos from the past has helped activate disconnected neural data, enabling healing opportunities to further transform my reality from the inside out. And so creating this documentary has helped me kind of piece things together and slowly regain a sense of self. So now when I have an experience, it's processed through a sense of the person that I am today who understands the persons that have been to lead me to this moment. The other profound aspect of this whole miraculous healing journey is that this is the first time I've been fully lucid since 2013. Ever since then, there's been constant dissociative blackouts and all kinds of unique experiences of consciousness due to traumatic stress trapped within my brain-body wiring. So this is the first time that I am fully lucid for more than a few days or a few weeks at a time, and it is a miraculous trip. Being alive is a miracle. Just existing at all is a profound miracle. Even more profoundly, this is the very first time in my entire life that my mind and my body are fully connected. Dissociation covertly began when I was a very young child. I didn't recognize it at the time, but I now understand the neurobiological core causalities of all the unique experiences that began during elementary school. Now, for the very first time in my life, my mind and body are fully connected and operating completely free of all traumatic stress. I know, it's okay. I know. I know, it's okay. It's okay, take your time. Take your time, baby. I gotcha. I gotcha. It's okay. It's okay. Everything's okay. Everything's okay now. Everything's okay now. Everything's okay. That did happen and I'm here. That did happen and I'm here. I know, right? I know, right? It's okay, sweetie. It's all okay. It's all a part of the journey.
You can't rush your healing. Darkness has its teachings. Love is never leaving. I love you. You can't rush your healing. And you shouldn't ever feel the need to try and rush your healing. You take all the damn time in the world that you want, babe. You take all the space and all the time to heal all the things in all the ways.
Adaptable consciousness condition, commonly described as dissociative identity disorder, developed in my life to protect me from early childhood trauma. Because healing that core trauma from childhood was such a big, important part of my healing journey, I would like to provide some insight into the timeline of what that looked like. From November 2017 to March 2019, I performed thousands of hours of self-hypnosis to uncover implicit memory fragments. The core childhood trauma had been gradually surfacing over the years, provoking a variety of symptoms and internal battles. But from November 2017 through March 2019, I intentionally dove into my subconscious or unconscious realms, trying to uncover implicit memory fragments to piece together what had happened. Up until that point, I had no idea that I had experienced trauma during early childhood. Nobody knew that. Nobody knew about this. And so I didn't understand how I could have developed dissociative identity disorder or adaptable consciousness condition. And so I began exploring my unconscious realms, uncovering implicit memory fragments. By March 2019, after a year and a half of daily self-hypnosis, I had uncovered enough fragments to piece together exactly what had happened, when it had happened, and who was a part of it. I finally knew what had provoked my divergent neurodevelopment all those years ago. In March 2019, when I discovered this, everything came to the surface at once. On the day that I uncovered the final pieces of the puzzle and put it all together, I was in a car for a long period of time. Activation of the unconscious implicit memory fragments from the core trauma from early childhood connected with a dorsal vagal collapse then became overcoupled with riding in a car. For the next several months, I lost consciousness in a dorsal vagal collapse resulting in severe oxygen deprivation every single time I rode in a car.
Your love makes me braver still.
Riding in a car was then associated with this core trauma from early childhood. In August 2019, I finally made progress processing these implicit memory fragments.
Even when we don't feel real, we're still real. Dissociative blackout notes.
And it was such a transcendent experience because in the process of uncovering the implicit memory fragments and then slowly rewiring them, I continually relived the core trauma. Pieces of information from that experience over 20 years ago were projected into my current experience, causing my physical body to relive sensations. And I had this profound opportunity to learn about how implicit memories work in a very first-hand way. Because these sensations that were so horrific were not physically occurring, but they felt like it. And to first-handedly witness how implicit memories can project incomplete experiences onto realities of consciousness that cause them to feel like current experiences is just it's such important information. And when we can learn about this stuff, it opens up so many doors for healing and self-understanding. Towards the end of 2019, I started to experience a reduction in the severity of the activation of the core trauma.
I feel like my aspects of self are connected. I can recognize myself. Oh my god, I'm not afraid of my face anymore.
The peak of it was during August 2019, and then I started to create some new neural connections that welcomed home some parts of my miraculous consciousness. In January 2020, I was noticing there was still a lot of dissociation though. What would it take for there to not be dissociation anymore? And that's when I started a brand new period of healing, realizing that it was all about the trauma and the implicit memory fragments that were trapped throughout the muscles of my body, or the mini brains housed throughout the ganglia of my body. Towards the end of January 2020, with the help of my amazing chiropractor, Dr. Luka Music, we were able to discover some physical trauma that had never been discovered from that core childhood trauma. And releasing and relieving that was a big breakthrough in my healing journey. And then throughout 2020, it was a very gradual process of creating new neural connections and brain hemispheric balance while regulating internal nervous systems and other modalities of operations. And so in 2017, I didn't even know I had childhood trauma. By 2019, I knew exactly what had happened. And then in 2020, all of that was getting fully processed. Towards the end of 2020, I experienced a profound moment, and I realized that the only place that that experience existed anymore was in the cells of my body. That story didn't exist other than right here inside of my beautiful, perfect, miraculous cells. And I had a bold moment of forgiveness. And this bold moment continued, and I came back and re-forgave until that forgiveness created new neural connections to heal the original experience. But there was this profound moment of forgiveness where I recognized that the experience only existed in my body. And so instead of it being about forgiving someone outside of me, forgiving the person who did this thing all those years ago, forgiving the event that happened a long time ago, it was a matter of forgiving the cells of my body for holding on to pain that it didn't need to hold on to anymore. And that process of forgiveness and letting go was a big step forward towards full trauma recovery. During this process, it was also processing other traumas from adulthood. There were 2 sexual assaults and 2 physical assaults and other traumatic experiences that were processed along the way. The core trauma involved molestation when I was 4 years old, and I forgive it. It's not something I ever need to hold on to. It has absolutely nothing to do with who I am or what I'm worth. It never did. And by letting go of it and creating space to forgive the cells of my body for holding on to pain that they don't need to hold on to anymore, I get to liberate myself in new ways over and over and over again. New liberation, new expansion, new freedom, new wholeness, new happiness, new health and well-being. I am never defined by my experiences, and neither are you.